Hey guys, it is Phlebotomy on the Move coming to you live today, live on YouTube. And I am so excited to come and talk about a subject that is dear to my heart. I always get lots of questions about it, and it's just a needed conversation in the mobile phlebotomy community. And that conversation is creating profitable pricing as a mobile phlebotomist. So many questions that I get from phlebotomists that I talk to, mentor, do business development on is my pricing. How do I structure my pricing? There's many ways to structure that. Knowing your target market, knowing your local market, knowing when it's too high and knowing when it's too low. There is something called profitability. And so profitability, let me read the definition. So profitability is a measure of a company's ability to generate income relative to its expenses. And it refers to amount of money a company earns after deducting all expenses such as wages, operating costs, and taxes. So many of you who have followed me, worked with me, the pricing itself, oh, I'm going to charge $100, I'm going to charge $200, I'm going to charge $50, is not always discussed in length of what my operational cost would be. How much does it cost, which is time versus money. So time versus the amount of money that I'm spending on providing that service comes into play so many times, and we really need to think about how we offer our service. And so profitability is a term that I want you guys to get familiar with. Um, and so in developing your pricing, think about how far you're going to travel. Think about the details of the services that you're going to provide. Will it be one tube, five tubes, 100 tubes? I know 100 tubes seems a lot, but for those who have done any holistic medicine or functional medicine, those doctors who like to do a lot of different tests, you know that with drawing a lot of blood, there also comes with a lot of processing. So if I'm processing blood that now takes 30, 40, an hour and a half to process because there may be a double spin or there may be, again, some other thing that you need to do, frozen, refrigerated, all that comes into play. And so that is something that you need to think about in creating your pricing. So pricing comes into play a lot when you are deciding to charge for your service. So how do I determine my pricing, Javon? That's the question that I ultimately get. The right strategy for you may be different in your market, and so you need to do some market research. One thing that you can do is you can start to assess and analyze what your competitors are doing. So there's a competitor analysis pricing. So what that means is to research the market and stay competitive is analyzing pricing strategy and competitors in your region. This can be done by conducting a market research. So if you don't know what a market research is, in a small form, it is doing a search to see if there's other mobile phlebotomy companies that are in your area, what their prices are, if they're showing those prices, and how you compete based on your service. So orange to oranges, not oranges to apples, right? If I'm drawing blood in the area and you are drawing blood in the area, what is different about my service that from yours, right? And from that, then do I justify my rate? And so, does the rate match what the market is and the target audience that you're going after? So, charging $100 for a basic blood draw. Basic blood draw could be 2 to 3 tubes, one or two kits, in a community that per capita or income level is around $30,000 or $40,000 in a single home, single parent home or single person home, maybe with one or two kids, may not be reasonable for that person to pay for your service. And so what would cause you to look outside of that is setting and marking your rate based on the service that you're providing and going to those areas that can afford your service. I do have many conversations with phlebotomists who want to do it all, right? And that's a great concept. Yet when we're just trying to do it all, we're missing out on key elements to scale and to grow. And so again, looking at your competitive market, your target market, assessing your services to then create a rate. So it's not so simple as, Javon just tell me to charge $50 in Birmingham, Alabama. It's not that simple. There is a starting point. There is a point where you need to make adjustments on your pricing. There is a point where you add value by adding other services within your blood draw collections. Maybe it's a blood pressure, maybe it's free or no fee for mileage up into a certain mileage. There's a couple different ways that you can approach that in creating value when you go out to your clients or your customers. Another sector is to get customer feedback. So you can't be customer feedback in the space where your client is telling you from their interaction with you that they can afford it or they cannot afford it. So an example is if you go out into the market and you charge $50. My thinking is that if it's so easy to get people to pay $50, then you may not be charging enough. Again, that's evaluating what the service that you're providing. So do a breakdown from the very incremental things that you do, from the time that you start, how far you're driving, what you're doing at the patient location. Do you have to process that blood? Do you have to ship that blood off to a FedEx, UPS, or wherever? Are you dropping it off to Quest or LabCorp or any other lab? What are you doing that full process? Outline it as if you would do a budget, right? Your spending budget. We can talk about that, but outline it fully so that you can get a sense of what you're really doing. A lot of times I would say that at a certain rate, once you do a full breakdown of the operating costs, you may not be making as much money as you think that you are. And it's important to know that so that you're not making so many fluctuations in your prices because you didn't price it initially right the first time. So choose a rate, a good starting rate that that will allow you to grow, allow yourself to grow is what I was going to say. Allow yourself to grow in that particular market. So have a radius of travel. Again, have a structure on what you're going to actually charge for that particular service. And then there is a part where you're going to manage operating costs. So managing operating costs, I want to bring a higher level of education. So we need to understand what these terms are so that we can apply it. So managing operating costs is to maintain profitability, because we're talking about being profitable as a phlebotomist, as a business owner, as a mobile phlebotomist business owner, is having being cost effective. This can be done regularly reviewing expenses such as supplies, equipment, and mileage rates identifying ways to reduce costs without compromising the quality of your service offered. Uh, do you need to charge more for mileage? Uh, do you need to find a different vendor for your supplies? Are you paying too much? Are you just getting it on Amazon? Are you picking up supplies at your Walgreens, right? Do you need to get the supplier to a supply chain, McKesson, Medline, groups like that, so that you can reduce your overall costs? Equipment, is your equipment efficient? Is it taking longer to spend that blood than it used to? You have an old piece of equipment that you borrowed, used, or got on eBay. Nothing wrong with a starting point, yet you need to reinvest into the company. Make sure you're looking at operational costs. All right. Additionally, you should explore options for outsourcing certain services or hiring part-time staff to reduce payroll if payroll is a part, or 1099. So having a team that you work with, collaborate with, and utilize from your marketing, from your customer service, answering the phones, all that should be thought of in your operating costs. Are you reducing that? Are you reviewing that on a quarterly basis? Um, have you assessed any pain points in your business? Pain points being that maybe the vendors went up in their rates, or prices for certain supplies went up, and that should cause you to look elsewhere for those services, for those supplies. So operating costs. Um, those come into play a lot. And I touch on three major things. If you haven't heard me say it before, it is what is the business plan, or what's the plan, right? Before you even start, what's your budget, right? And so budget is that key part. So not just knowing what your own personal experiences, but your business experiences, wear and tear on your car, oil changes, all those things you need to consider, because those are eventually should be coming out of your business expense. So in your business expense, charging $50 may not sustain you unless you have a significant volume at that rate. So think about your operating costs. Another area that I would look at to gain profitability is optimizing your schedule. I can't tell you how many times I have seen and heard and assisted phlebotomists who have not managed their schedule. They are going every which way to do as many blood draws as they can, and they don't have any time to do any operational review. They are not optimizing their routes. They are spending money on buying food on the go. So all those things can come into play when you're not optimizing your schedule. So let's do a definition on that too. Another way to maintain profitability is to optimizing scheduling to minimize idle time and increase the number of appointments per day. So if on your scheduling platform that you're using, if patients are scheduling every other day, restrict the times that you have. You're not doing blood draws for certain areas, maybe on Monday. Maybe you're doing in-office draws and there's not enough patients that are coming in to the office space that doesn't justify you either maintaining the office space or going to that space. If you have staff, sending staff to that space. So think about how you optimize your schedule in that way. This can be done by using a scheduling software. So there's plenty of free services out there. One service that can be done or utilized is Calendly. Some groups are using that. Some websites have an appointment arm or portal through it. You can use that. But the thing to do is to look at your schedule. There's a basic calendar, right? Or you can really get really old school is you can write everything down. But in doing that, you need to review like what's your on your schedule for the week, for the month, so that you can better allocate your time. Use those gap times to do some research for your market. Maybe spend some time in readjusting your vendor list that you're using. Finding out if there's any networking locations that you can be a part of. Uh, there's tons of things that you can fill in on those gaps of time as your business. Now, the benefit of being a mobile phlebotomist is you have the flexibility. You're on the road when you want to, in a sense, and you can choose that time that's beneficial to you. The other side is that it's your business. How do you maintain and scale, right? Maintaining is maybe you're seeing 15 blood draws a week, right? Generating, 2, 3, 4,000 a week. Maybe you're not at that point. Assessing if only making $1,000 a week is sufficient. It may have been better than what you were making at your job, but remember, the job was taking on all these expenses that I'm mentioning to you as well. So you now have to take that responsibility. Know that it is important that you review and analyze these things prior to or in consideration for being more profitable. So to do a real quick recap, we are reviewing the market so we can create that competitive rate. We are managing our costs, looking at our expenditures to determine if we can have some cost savings, and optimizing our schedule. Looking at your schedule on a regular basis to determine where you can have uh, you can optimize your routes and optimize your workflow, and also fill in those gaps by adding value, by doing self training, by marketing, all the things that you need to do as a business owner. Um, Creating a competitive pricing for mobile bottling services can be challenging, and I always review my pricing. So, as I mentioned earlier, if I'm charging $100 today, a year from now, should I still be charging $100? I have to assess the market. That client may have asked you to start with them at $100 rate when you first started. You felt good about it. Yet now they're asking you to do one or two more things. They actually go a little bit further. So it could be time to reevaluate that contract or that rate with that client. The fear is that, well, I may lose that client. That's a possibility. But we have to also determine the value of service that you're providing. Will they be able to provide get that service from someone else at a lower rate? They may. How long is that quality? We just don't know. You and I could be coming into the market at the same time. I'm going to continue to increase my value. Your value may stay the same, which is again not a bad thing. Your value is your value, yet the client is going to potentially look at what they can get at a cheaper rate as often as they can, right? You can think about going into the grocery store, and the egg prices are at Costco, they're $5.99 for 18, right? Just a couple months ago, they were $4.99. Before that, they were $3.99. Why? Because the demand is higher. So they can justify charging more money for the same exact product. Can you do the same? Can you justify charging more for essentially the same product, right? The same service. Evaluate that, and if it's truly a need, if they really need you, they'll pay. So don't be fearful of increasing your rates when the value that you have is great. Um, so profitability again is the measure of a company's ability to generate income relative to its expenses. So if you're not managing your expenses, profitability will not be at scale and significant. So we're always looking at our profits. I want to touch on ways to increase your profitability. I like to create packages. So group in some of your services. Maybe add a service into your basic service. Create a premium or an advanced service. Look at what you can provide and decide if that is something that a client wants. I'll go back to the feedback. Um, could we offer, I don't know, blood pressure during our service? That takes a few minutes of your time. You can get an automated machine and create a added value to the customer. Could we do height, weight, and blood pressure? And blood pressure combined. Would that be a premium service? Could we have a fine linen handkerchief on the table and have white gloves? The thought can grow far farther than what you can even think of, but the client and your patients, your individual patients will recognize that. So what can you do to add value to your service? Continue to think through that. Um, think about how your services can be more competitive. So on the other side of that, if your rates are so high, add more into your service. Again, that may require you to really evaluate what those services actually do. Maybe you will only do one kit for that rate. Maybe add two. Maybe add three. You're essentially there already. Doing an extra kit or two won't really affect unless, again, back to that original thought, is that I have to include the processing time and shipping time. May have to ship in two different locations. So think through those different steps as you create these various packages that would be beneficial. Look at the different examples that are out there. It won't hurt to explore online and see what other mobile phlebotomists are doing. Um, I don't believe that we're so next to each other that we can't have a space where we can thrive together. I have seen uh, us not share this information, and that's why I've started this platform as well, to continue to share information so that we can grow together. So, guys, I love this topic. I'll do more on this conversation. Ask some questions. I want to see some questions about what you thought about what I talked about today. So, again, to recap, today's subject was about profiting as a mobile phlebotomist, creating profitable pricing in your mobile phlebotomy company. Uh, Love to get some feedback again from you guys. I will end it here, but thank you guys again for joining Phlebotomy on a Move. Successful strategies for you to grow. All right, see you guys next time.